Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the COVID-19 Global Disruption Update. This is the start of our third week of our monthly long sessions. What an interesting month we have had. So just a note, these slides are updated as of yesterday, 4/13/2020, with regard to what we are understanding about changing legislation, just in case that you are viewing this recording at a later date and things have changed. Speaking of recording, we are recording this webinar, and so if you do not want to participate in a recorded session, please exit the recording at this time. I would also like to take a moment and share that we are not attorneys or tax accountants, and as such, none of the information we are sharing should be construed as legal or financial advice. We always encourage businesses to consult those partners for guidance for their own organizations. On the phone from our team today, we have myself, Amanda Erickson, and Jeannie Valier from HRX Services. I will be presenting content and Jeannie will be working to moderate and facilitate the chat and questions and answers section of the webinar. Between the two of us, we hold certifications in PHR, SPHR, SHRM CP, and SHRM SCP designations. Jeannie, would you like to say hello?
Good afternoon, Amanda, and all our guests. We've got some new faces joining us. I'm excited to get going.
Wonderful. We are also joined today by our colleague and friend, Mike Kohler, working through Elevate Virtual. Mike, would you also like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Not surprisingly, I do want to take a moment. And I want to thank everybody for attending. I do see old friends, or no, not old, good friends and some new people in the group. So I appreciate that very much. Something I wanted to mention that you should be alert to is that on behalf of my department, the Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development Department, I'm going to be surveying you and others who have attended our array of public service webinars to check attitudes and where you are on things and get feedback from you. So be on the lookout for that in the near future. I'd appreciate it if you could just take a few moments when you get the survey and respond. It'll be totally confidential, by the way. So we'll send that out probably in the next week.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And once again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to connect with all of our friends here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, like we always start with, a little housekeeping. Once more, I'd like to just direct your attention to the tools box, which may be hidden below. So you'll need to hover your mouse toward the bottom of the screen. So once you see this toolbox, will you go ahead and find the raise hand function, and let's see who found that box, and raise your hand if you found it now. Outstanding. We are near 100% compliance. Fantastic work. We will also be using things like polling, and let's practice that right now. I'm going to enable the first poll totally for fun. So let's go ahead and see if we can make this execute. Jeannie,
there it is.
Thank you. We have fast responders. Awesome. I'll give it a few more seconds. And great. I'll go ahead and share the results.
Great, there they are.
Awesome. I think that's what I would do too right now. I think everybody's just looking for a little connection, so I completely understand. Part of our goal is to be as engaging as we can in these types of environments, so we will have a few more polling activities through the presentation, but looks like you all figured this out this time. Okay, so there's also a chat bot feature, which is similar to any other chat feature that you've probably used on other tools. The team and I will do our best to moderate this area, but I want to direct you instead to the question and answers box. Using this box helps us to moderate and facilitate a little easier with the most popular questions rising to the top, as well as we can pull a report which allows us to find your questions later in case we don't get to all of them today. I also want to take a moment to note at this time that we're hoping for some question and answer time at the end, but that is also what our Thursday session will be set up for. So our model for these sessions has been focused on providing a Tuesday content-based session like the one you're in today, and then a Thursday interactive forum question and answer session where we can instead provide more communication and information around specific questions. Now, please look for that sign up if you're interested in a forum type session in addition to the one that you're in today. This Thursday, we'll be joined by Rob Timmey, who is the practice manager for Ameriprise Financial and the treasurer for NCHRA, or Northern Colorado Human Resources Association, here in Northern Colorado. Again, Jeannie will join in, and it should be a great session. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our agenda for today then. So really, we're trying to focus in on some particular subject areas that HR folks and business leaders may be experiencing at this time. So we're going to talk about some of those focus areas and then really specifically talk about HR wellness. That's obviously the goal for a lot of us here, and we really want to make sure that we're highlighting some of those areas that might be impacted because of COVID-19. So first, we're just going to work through some organization wellness specifically. Let's talk through all of the specific areas needing attention or things that are happening right now at the moment. So financial is first. Here we are seeing a lot of action around things like pro forma work and mapping out timelines for needing things like layoffs and furloughs. We're talking about benefit continuation and what does that look like, and wage reduction and other needs. There's a lot of items happening around expenses to continue with business continuity. So for example, did you need to buy laptops as an example, when remote working was required? Maybe you weren't set up for that. How about updating your bandwidth on your network or upgrading your teleconference capabilities? And of course, analyzing the monthly burn. What expenses are essential and which ones are not? Where are your accounts receivable and accounts payable at the moment? And what is your cash flow situation? Are you addressing how we pay some bills and which ones we can afford penalties on? So those are real questions that are happening right now in all of our organizations. Then we have the legal aspect. How do we maintain some normal operations within changing legislation? How do we maintain doing things in the box that are required if that box is no longer available? For example, how do we complete I-9s for new workers if we're not able to meet with them face to face? How do we confirm who we have working with us and do not? What are my requirements under the WARN Act, for example, and will it impact my organization? Let's talk about sales. How do we sell to people who do not have buying on the brain at all? Unless, of course, you happen to be in GoToMeeting or Zoom or something that has now become essential for a new working environment. What do we do when we can't see each other face to face, in person, where relationships are key to our success? We see a lot of salespeople struggling with this reality. And what do you do when your corporate office is still demanding KPIs or key productivity indicators and focus on closing business? These are real problems that are happening in our sales departments. Let's talk about service and production. In some cases, we're overstaffed, and in others, widely understaffed. And while unemployment rates are sky high, we are still hoping to bring those people back into our own organizations. So looking for work has a different meaning at the moment. We've seen a lot of service people navigating with empathy, listening to customers and clients, but struggling to find out how and where they can help, since things are still somewhat uncertain. And how our production teams, so many companies out there making changes to what they're producing, like art companies making plastic barriers for workers on the front lines, and garment industries making uniforms for medical workers, to our very own Jeannie Valyer's daughter making face masks for people in need. Even though things are not being done as they had been before, our ability to shift direction and priorities really makes us resilient. But our main focus for today is going to be on the, of course, HR focus areas. So let's dig into it. So the areas in particular we're going to be focusing on in this session is going to be on workforce planning, compliance, work-life integration, and what I mean by that. And then we're going to focus heavily a little bit on the well-being portion. So first, well-being, focusing on workforce planning. The areas that I really see that we've been having a lot of discussions around with COVID-related needs are going to be focused on benefits, compensation, and then position stability. So some of the change focus areas for us start with the benefits and how those changes affect that aspect of our workplaces. So first, let's talk a little bit about how our benefit plans work. How do I understand what is available? Like, things have changed. So how do I know what my plans will work or look like for this period of time? And what should I understand about those changes? In these circumstances, it is really important to be sure to connect with your brokers and insurance partners. We've had some conversations with them recently and almost on a daily basis. They will help you. They are equipped to help you, and they want to help you navigate through this time. So this is a call you should be making often as we navigate the changing world of benefits. Second, it's a good idea to review your own plan documents. So understanding what the waiting periods look like and see what modifications may exist in the new normal as we navigate this dynamic. Also consider things like your high deductible health plan structure and FSA or flexible spending account flexibility options that exist during this time. Again, some of those changes may be in your plan. And third, understand what active at work means for an organization. So active at work used to have an hourly threshold associated with that. Was it at 30 hours? Was it at 24? What was that active at work for you in the past? And what is it now? Some carriers are implementing changes to what the active at work status is so you can reduce your workforce, but not have to eliminate your benefits, should that need to do so occur. What are my options if I should have to lay off the whole workforce for a period of time? How will this affect my benefits? Will they be canceled? How many people do I have to have working in order to continue my plan? And what are the requirements for paying of premiums to ensure my plan or the people on it can stay active? Again, some of this legislation has helped that, and some of the carriers have just adopted new formality and processes. All of these areas are being addressed by carriers, and connecting with your brokers is really the best idea to help you understand how your plan will work overall. So, with a show of hands, how many of you are connecting with your broker on somewhat of a constant or consistent basis? Awesome. We're looking at least about half of you right now. And remember, some of these things really do affect employers with even just one employee. So something to definitely consider. Okay. So now let's talk about how to access care in general. What happens if I need or my employee needs to seek treatment? What and where should I reference for that aspect of care? Well, there are a few resources available, and by few, I mean an overwhelming amount of guidance is out there. I know, because we're looking at it. So here are some that we would recommend considering. First, always review your CDC recommendations. On an almost daily basis, we are seeing updated information and regulation. It can be overwhelming, and I know, but with your morning coffee, start off with a few key websites to help you navigate what you should know. CDC is one of those sites that I would say is on our list. Second, where you can and are able to do so, using telehealth services is a great idea. This can be done from home, and at this time can be used if even on a high deductible health plan, that's a structured plan design you have, without first having to meet that deductible. If you need additional testing, your care providers online can guide you to a resource for that need. And if you do need it, starting with your telehealth system can be a great starting off point. So what happens if I need care? Well, testing for COVID is also to be covered under plans and visits, including telehealth and behavioral health, according to an Anthem announcement we saw, are also to be covered. And costs associated with care in some circumstances may be covered, depending again on your plan design and your structure and the carrier. So something that we recommend reaching to your broker about that can help you navigate through how that's working for your particular plan. Okay. So one thing to consider as we're moving through COVID-19 is that there are still some compensation and financial considerations that are lingering in the Colorado regulation requirements. So this is a really brief, and I promise, I know we're trying to focus on COVID, but this is a brief reminder as you're considering things like a reduction of wages that you need to also consider where you'll land once you start doing that return to work provision. I think we can all understand that there can and potentially will be changes to how we connect back with people and re-engage our workforce when calling them back to work. For those reasons, becoming familiar with your requirements under equal pay for equal work and comps are of great importance. These would include things like employer posting requirements, job offers and salary requests from candidates, as well as advertising new positions and job postings in particular. This will also impact exempt and non-exempt status requirements and should also be a consideration. On a related note, one thing to keep in mind as far as reduction of wages is concerned at this time is that reducing an employee's wages but not hours may not allow them to qualify for unemployment. And that's something just to understand. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. So, some interactivity time. Let's do our second poll.
So Amanda, while you're putting that poll out there, we didn't have a question per se, but a really good comment to add on to your comment regarding telehealth and telemedicine. Someone from our group who does work within the healthcare field indicated you should also first check with your local provider, your PCP or your primary care physician, as they may offer virtual visits in addition to telemedicine or MD Live or any of those things.
Oh, that's a great point. You're absolutely right. I think everybody is trying to restructure how we can engage with our client. And for those folks, that definitely would be something they would do. Thank you, Jeannie, and to our person as well. Okay, so our second poll, here we go. Let's talk a little bit about how we're feeling about preparation for regulations regarding comps and equal pay for equal work. I'll give you a couple seconds. Well, a few. Okay, just a few more seconds. And we'll go ahead and end the polling and share our results out. So it looks like we have some folks that are at least engaged and starting in that, which is wonderful. Some who are ready to go. And then we do have some who have heard about it or maybe are not quite sure about what's happening. So certainly something I would recommend looking into, at least on our blog site or a lot of other HR consulting companies, and as well as some state legislative areas will have some information on this if you're not sure about that.
Amanda, we did have one question, and forgive me because I don't have your slide deck. Sure. Comps, are you going to go into more of an explanation of what it is? Somebody just recently asked, can we clarify comps?
So we are not, but I will send out a link to a session that we will be hosting that's going to be specific to that, which will be surrounding comps and everything that you do need to understand. Really high level, some of the areas that we're going to see is that your exemption status and your exemption levels will change with comps. There is some requirements as far as notification and posting requirements regarding it. Jeannie, is there anything else you want to add kind of high level?
Sure. Just the acronym, we'll start with that. It's a Colorado Overtime Minimum Pay Standards. I think I just answered that next question. And basically, comps is an adopted rule that has superseded the prior overtime minimum pay order. And this is the most recent and most current, and it was updated as of March 16th, 2020. And to Amanda's point, there'll be a link for the poster, but if you're a little unfamiliar with all the nuances, I would highly encourage you to reach out and seek some more information on it. There's a lot of not only compliance requirements around it, but there's a lot of things that employers should really be looking at terms of pay equity and getting ready for the equal pay, because they're going to kind of go hand in hand here soon, very quickly.
Correct. It really focuses high level, just for today, really focus pretty clearly on non-exempt versus exempt level work, and paying people for hourly work, making sure people are getting breaks when they need to, and if not, then they would be owed that time. So again, there's some very specific regulations. The comps order in and of itself went into effect on March 16th. The reason that this may seem a little bit unusual for folks is just because I think we saw final adoption of it in January, at the end of January, so it was really fast to kind of circulate. But the exemption requirements as far as salary levels, if you were already in alliance with the federal guidelines for your exemption level, then you are okay for at least the remainder of this year. But next year, that level will move up another $5,000, and that threshold will move up every year going forward. So again, we'll send a link to kind of understand some of the poster requirements, and a link to some further sessions that we'll have so you can learn more about it if it's something that you're unfamiliar with. Sound good, Jeannie?
Yeah, just as a teaser to that, you mentioned the breaks. It's different than the federal requirements, so definitely encourage you to take a higher look at it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Great questions. Okay, so one other question that we seem to keep getting a lot of is with regard to, and this is both from our clients, from these sessions, as well as just partners in general, is what are the differences between a furlough and a layoff? So want to just kind of take into some consideration here a little bit more, highlighting that area. So a furlough, generally speaking, as a furlough, you are still, if you're a furloughed employee, you're still an active employee. You may not have any hours, or you may have reduced hours. And for that reason, your benefits can usually remain, but we would confirm with your broker, definitely looking at your plan documents to make sure that's something that could happen. Depending on what you're qualifying as a furlough and some other areas, certainly warrant implications could be something that you need to look at and consider. Now, a layoff, on the other hand, is generally you're considered inactive or a terminated employee with a layoff. Again, similar as far as you don't usually have any hours. Reduced hours would be for more of a job attached situation, but again, that would happen more with a furlough. COBRA would be something that you would have if you were an inactive or terminated employee. You may receive some COBRA paperwork and documentation. And then warrant implications, once again, could be something that you need to look at. Now, job attached layoff is something that is a little different. It kind of mirrors more of what a furlough is. There's an idea that you would have a job attached layoff situation for up to 16 weeks, in which case you need to be brought back to the job. And again, in some circumstances, the benefits can remain. I think that's a lot to do with the COVID piece at the moment. Something I would confirm with your broker, and once again, review those plan documents. Now, as some of the benefits we've seen with a furlough or even job attached layoff would include that this can reduce your hiring needs for in the future. So you just recall employees back to work. That could be a benefit for why you would do a furlough. The biggest benefit is it creates a feeling of certainty, not that it's there, because again, we're at will employers for the most part. So, but it creates a level of security maybe for your employees that they are considered still an active employee with the company to have a furlough, whereas a layoff can suggest more that they are not, and that they are not an active employee. And so that could also have kind of an emotional impact. Now, understanding warrant implications and the triggers for this could be something you would need to visit and look at should you be an employer with 100 or more employees. And this would be something we would want you to encourage you to speak with counsel or your partners like HRX to determine your needs there. Okay, so obviously most of us are now aware of the changing legislation that has come around as a result of COVID-19, and this includes FFCRA and CARES Act, and then some of the unemployment changes that have been associated with those items. Now we'll work through those changes and some recap review on the next slides. So first, for FFCRA, we've had you know, a lot of kind of conversation around this. I'm sure you've participated in several webinars around this topic. We did want to make sure that we just kind of revisit and recap it. First and foremost, the questions and answers. I think this is something, and I think that Jeannie would agree with me on this. We really think that that question and answers document, it's an internet link that the DOL has provided that really talks a lot about how FFCRA is designed to work. I think that it provides some of the best guidance that you can use with just how fast things are moving. And of course, we have COVID-related need for leave kind of really highlighted in that piece. So that is one of the components that I think has been most helpful with the frequently asked questions, or the questions and answer guide, has really been exploring the idea of what COVID-related need for leave is and what it is not. There's also some information around the paid sick leave, which once again is really that up to 80 hours at regular pay if it's for your own COVID-related need for leave, or 80 hours at 2/3 pay if it's for another person. So that would be either they have a COVID health-related need, or you have a daycare or childcare or school-related closure that prohibits you from being able to, you need to be able to take care of your children. Now, for employers, once again, this is for employers who are under 500 employees. From our last session on Thursday with Kate Feeney from Tilt, we had a great privilege of talking with her about a lot of these areas, and she had mentioned that layoffs can be affected. So if you do lay some folks off and you might have been above that 500 threshold, that depending on the timeline and where things kind of align, that you potentially could be an FFCRA employer once layoffs have occurred. So just something that she kind of illustrated, and I think that was a helpful piece of information. As well as the expanded FMLA. So once again, if you have those daycare or child-related needs, school closures, that for children under the age of 18, then the FMLA has been expanded for employers under 500 employees as well. So again, just really high level. If you have further questions or you want to dive into that a bit deeper, our previous sessions are available on our YouTube channel, which is HR Explained. And there are further detailed webinars that have a lot of content and information on those particular pieces. Now, as well as the FFCRA compliance component. So as we know, there is some documentation requirements, once again, available in that questions and answers link, which does tell you these are all of the things that you need to be able to document in order to make sure that people are really taking leave for a COVID-related need. That is something that you're going to want to document and keep records of. There's also some notification requirements, which includes the FFCRA poster, which should now be posted if you are a COVID-covered or a FFCRA-covered employer, and then that notification requirements are in existence as well. And then for the leave management, which is something we got to talk a little bit about with Kate on last week, speaking about how you're connecting with leave, how you're connecting with employees, how you're tracking that and how you're managing it is also something that you need to be considering. So for that reason, and I know that we do have some new people attending as well, but for the folks that have been here before or are familiar with kind of all of those different areas, let's do another poll. And this poll, we're going to see how we're doing with our notification and documentation. Thank you, Jeannie. Outstanding. I'll go ahead and end our poll and share the results. Jeannie, can you see the results?
I can.
Wonderful. Okay, so it looks like people are either working on it, which is great. There is, you do have that period of time, kind of that good faith effort period of time that we're coming up upon here in probably next week. I think the 18th is kind of the deadline where any grace for that would be considered okay, as long as you are making a good faith effort. But we do want to make sure people do have their posters up and they are working on their documentation processes. So wonderful to see that. Okay, so let's go ahead, keep moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about the CARES Act. So CARES Act is more associated, I would say, with the financial based areas of need, and we would encourage you to reach out to your partners in that space, so like your controllers or tax accountants, bookkeepers, people who are helping in that and supporting that area. But we did want to be able to share really high level just some of those key points. So first, we have our Paycheck Protection Program. Now, one of the key pieces is that this cannot be used together with the FFCRA or the Employee Retention Tax Credit, which is just below. This act is really, or the provision of this act is really designed to try and encourage employers to keep their staff and avoid laying them off. So some of the things to understand, it's based on a head count at certain times. So both prior to the event and also at a certain date, which we believe will be June 30th. So they're going to compare your head count at those different periods of time. And it does also include some payroll costs for calculation purposes, and something that you're going to need to provide if you are considering participating in this program. Now, it can qualify, a business can qualify for up to 2.5 times their monthly payroll, up to a $10 million cap. And this would be provided you meet all requirements associated with the program. The loan may be forgivable. So that's one of the enticing pieces of this. Again, if you did have to lay off people, or you didn't have the same headcount or things in that nature, that could affect the forgivable piece, at least in some components. So something just, again, to research and connect with your accounting teams on. Now, as far as the Employee Retention Tax Credit, so this can be used with the FFCRA regarding qualified leave, but not for the same wages. Some other things to note is that you can use it for up to $10,000 in wages, but that's paid out at 50% of qualified wages. So it's basically like a total maximum credit paid for an employee at $5,000. Some of the things you need to be careful of is that the business needs to be either partially or totally suspended, and there has to be a significant decline in gross receipts. Again, there's some great resources on the more specifics and in detail about these areas specific to the IRS in general. I think that's where we found most of that. Once again, we'll have links to that available with the slide deck. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about unemployment insurance, because both the FFCRA and the CARES Act has developed some additional guidelines or opportunities in the unemployment insurance area. So the first would be, they've kind of really made some simplification as to how you need to file and what you need to prepare for in order to file. So the first is that anybody that would need to file for unemployment, you need to be prepared to have your income related information. They will collect that, they will ask for that. And so you need to be prepared with like paycheck stubs and different pieces of information that kind of detail how you've been paid. You will need to fill out an application online. So it's nice that it's online. And then of course you want to review your claim before submitting. It needs to be accurate. Most importantly is that you want to make sure you register with your local workforce center and Connecting Colorado, and that way you can make sure that you're in compliance with what they are requiring for unemployment. Now, some further details around COVID-19. This is under the employer FAQ under the Colorado CDLE site. So again, that link will be provided. But one of the things that we found is that if it's a COVID related leave, that this is something that would not be charged to your account, which is interesting. So again, if it's a COVID related need for leave and the employer is having to lay someone off or furlough them or reduce hours, those types of things, that this would not be charged to your XMOD, would not be affected by it essentially. Now, in order to make sure that that happens, you need to provide 2 forms after a claim is filed of documentation. And so that would be first like your wages and charges and the reason for why employee is not working. So when they call to follow up, again, making sure you have that information ready. Some alternatives is that they have offered like the work share program, which is kind of a program which would allow you to keep your employees while you pay some of their salary normally, and then the other parts of it are paid through the unemployment program. So that's kind of nice. You don't just have to lay them off to still use that benefit. And then they have put together or do have the rapid response program, which is through the state. And this would be for people needing to do a layoff. They provide a lot of great resources and tools to help your employees work through that outplacement process. Now, a couple of things, again, just that we had mentioned earlier, I want to just reiterate and say that, again, a reduction of hours versus a reduction in pay. So in some circumstances, we're seeing that there might be a reduction in pay for organizations or for leaders in the organization. One thing to note is that under at least the unemployment insurance COVID resources on the CDLE, they do state that you need to be working at less than 32 hours or less in order to really qualify for unemployment. So if you are just doing a reduction of pay, that may not qualify your folks for the unemployment insurance. And then one thing to note as far as the under the CARES Act is that this is expanded. Unemployment insurance has been expanded under the CARES Act, but the administration of it is still being handled under the state. And so the state of Colorado is still managing the leave process. And as of April 12th, 2020, on their website, they were stating that they're still waiting for federal guidance. And here's that statement here, so you can kind of see what it is that they're looking at. But some of this guidance would include that up to $600 a week additional benefit. And they do still say that there is a need to register with Connecting Colorado, even if you're job attached on a layoff status as job attached. And that was from information from the SBDC of Larimer County. So again, just some good things to kind of note as how all this is laying and coming together for your reference. Okay, so human resources, well-being. Let's talk a little bit about work-life integration. This is next up. So I think that we can all consider that our family dynamic anymore has changed and shifted a little bit. Our family has now also become kind of our coworkers in a way. And we need to have some consideration for what that new normal looks like. I know we've heard that phrase a lot. So let's talk a little bit about that. So even now, things are certainly hard. We are not at work and not at home. There's really not a natural separation. And so for some people, that's a very good thing. They enjoy working, they like what they do to earn $1 and it's rewarding, but it's not like that for everybody. And so everyone needs kind of an off button. And here's some things to consider. So first, kind of a structure for success, right? What about this idea of a daily limit? We're going to talk more about this with Rob on Thursday, but as a quick note, we need to limit a lot of things. So I know we always kind of say, sky is the limit, there are no limits, you know, that type of saying, but really limiting can also be a very good thing sometimes. And today, I think the limit I am thinking about is how much time I spend in the office, right? So I'm focusing on spending some time outside of the office. Even if I'm working, I spend some time in my communal team shared space workplace, which happens to be with my family still right now, but it's good to kind of get out of the norm that I'm still spending time and sharing time with other people. That said, I still have a daily limit. I do this much and then I turn it off. Other things, schedule in your personal needs. So every day I try and get outside. Doing something with a little vitamin D is really my focus. Sometimes it's what I call my walking, and that's my version of the brisk walk that's disguised as a slow run. So walking. Sometimes it's playing with the dogs. Sometimes it's a lunch break on the patio. But either way, I take some time away on purpose. And then I don't feel bad about it. I'm sure that we have some folks who are feeling a little bit guilty about, you know, not working when they have the ability to. That's tough. It's hard to see the computer in front of you and in your face and not get absorbed by it. So maintain some spaces, even your communal spaces, where this is what you do here, and then others where this is you do not do it here. Create some of those natural boundaries because it's really important. And I think that more than anything, this is really important right now while we're all connected and working from home. But I'm curious just to see how everybody else is doing it. So our last poll of the day let's see what you all like to do. And you can click as many as you want.
Not there yet.
Okay. Let's try one more time.
Nope.
Okay, one more time. Because this is the funnest one.
The funnest?
The most fun.
Unfortunately, we just don't see it.
Oh,
I do.
that's not true. There are people voting now.
Oh, I do not see it.
I can
Okay.
see it.
I'm sorry, Jeannie.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's okay. You can live vicariously through the rest of the folks here.
There you go. Darn it.
I know. Well, there might be others that maybe can't either. I'll give it a few more minutes, a few more seconds. Okay. All right. So love this. This is a mass array of things. We'll go ahead and share this. So can you see the poll results, Mike, Jeannie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
That's a bummer.
I know. I will say that for myself, I can equally enjoy some of that couch time, the Netflix, Disney. We're pretty Marvel focused in this house at the moment.
But wait, isn't sitting the new smoking?
Isn't which one?
Sitting.
Oh, I tell you what, and I think I talk about this in a minute, but some days we need to track more than 200 steps, right? So it's tough. It's tough right now to be out there and engaging and doing things, but I love seeing that people are really trying to do some other activities and making time for that. I think that's really important. Okay, so let's continue forward and let's move to the next piece. So finally, let's work through some of our needs for well-being. One thing I've noted with most everyone that I'm speaking with is that things are moving to more of a new normal. We may even start to acclimate and calling it to the regular normal. But as we move through, we're kind of experiencing some of the stages of grief. And I know that there's a lot of people who are doing that. I certainly have experienced some of that. And we're working into different frames at different points. Some has to do with how we operate normally, and some has to do with the circumstances that we're in. So again, just as a reminder for all of this, I know that there are some models with 7. I'm going to talk about the one with 5, but our stages of grief, I think that on some level, we've at least talked with people who are experiencing some of this or have. A lot of us might be, still in some of these early stages, but I think we all kind of experience some form of denial. And then I know I certainly went through a little bit of anger. How is this happening? Where are we going? What's going on? And then kind of that bargaining position where we're doing this because this is what needs to be done. We're going to make it happen and we're going to come together. But I think I see a lot of people kind of in this phase. And this is tough, that depression place where we're experiencing things and now we're kind of acclimating to that. But I don't know, do we really love that? Is that really what we want to be doing? And so I think that I see people kind of in these areas at the moment when we're speaking with them. And so when we work through how people handle different scenarios, I think it's important that if we understand a bit more people about how people work through situations, we can find ourselves in being able to help and support them. And so this isn't like a scientific chart. This is kind of an Amanda point of view, more or less. But really, I see a lot of times that we deal with people who are kind of extrovert or introvert, or really a combination of both. And when I look at that, I see that when we have people who are maybe introverted, like they like to recharge by themselves or, figure out where they're at alone. And then sometimes they also really don't love being in social situations. And I would say at first, okay, well, does that mean that they're in the best of all worlds right now, right? Because they can recharge, they can be at home, but they also don't have to be out in social situations. And I would say maybe that's the case, but maybe they're also experiencing where I had the opportunity to work from home before, and now everybody's at home and I have no alone time. So that could be very challenging for them right now. Or what about the person who maybe, in a social comfort situation, they don't really love being in social situations, but they recharge with people they love and their family and their friends. And maybe they are getting some of that because they're with their family, but they don't get all of it because they're not with their friends. Or what if their family isn't with them and they're having to kind of recharge by themselves? So that can be challenging for them as well. And then we have, our extrovert introverts. And those are the folks who really, I love being in social situations, but I recharge alone. And so once again, they might be experiencing that need to connect with people and they don't have that social interaction. And maybe they don't have the ability to be at home alone. So they might be struggling a little bit. And then certainly our extroverts, which is what I identify as for sure, which is someone who really loves being in social situations and really recharges being in coffee shops and hearing people and connecting. And that's certainly not happening. And even though I might really love to be able to be with my family all of the time, they're busy and doing other things as well. So I think that everybody is kind of experiencing this in different ways, and something that we can kind of explore and understand when we're connecting with our employees, our spouses, our partners, the other people that are in our lives right now, to try to have some understanding and maybe help and reach out to them for guidance, support, and also to support them. So while we're experiencing some of these situations currently, there are ways to consider working through them as well. Let's start with physical well-being. So getting outside, this is where I was thinking about. I think there have been days where I've tracked 200 steps per day, and that's challenging, but I'm working. I'm working hard. I'm doing a lot of things. So again, trying to make sure we're getting out, taking some physical time, and this can be helpful for that well-being part. Or let's look at, food and how we're dealing with that. So whether we are gourmet cooks and we can take the time, build that in for ourselves to really create some great meals and connection points with our family or the people around us, or ordering in, maybe that's something that you like to do. You can be supporting the community, and maybe that's a level of comfort. So really recognizing that those are still really valuable and foundational places for us. And again, something we plan to discuss in more detail with Rob on Thursday, so plug in to join us there. But as we work through this challenging time, financial well-being has to be something that we're considering. All from the fact that shopping can be used both as a social event and fun time, but it can also be used as a coping mechanism. Remember when we couldn't find toilet paper anywhere? So I think this is something that we need to understand and consider. And maybe seeing and connecting with people socially might be a part of something that you did frequently, and the loss of that is really challenging right now. So understanding the options you have, both from a good and a potentially bad standpoint, is important. So if you're looking for savings and retirement and a planning strategy right now, that's good, but maybe not what you need to be focusing on at the moment, right? Planning or making big changes for retirement may not be the focus you should be looking at, but perhaps budget planning and other focus areas are. So there are things that we can kind of be looking at, and I would again invite you to listen in on Thursday for more ideas and insight into that particular area when Rob Timmey joins us. And certainly our mental health is inevitably important and probably affected at the moment. There are a lot of good things about staying at home, and certainly something we're all planning and needing to do at the moment, and we're on board. But that can also come with some other areas of concern. So we're all connected between work and family. We don't leave one to go to another. And for some, that may mean that is amazing and a wonderful, supported place. And for others, that could be the escape that they were looking for, either from work or from family. And we need to understand that depending on our home life, that might be a challenge for some people. So for these reasons, understanding who we are, how we deal with things, and where our resources are available are really important. Things to note that may be available to you, again, are those telehealth and telemedicine type services. Behavioral health is a big piece of that. And then you may also have access to an employee assistance program or an EAP. And this may be something that's already in your plan design and you might have access to, and we just need to share with our team and our colleagues and our employees so that they can have some resources to reach out to during this type of situation. Now, a lot of these are already included, so this may not be an additional cost to you. And I think that's something that you should be aware of. All the more reason to ensure we're looking at those areas and understanding what resources that are available is important. Don't shy away from reaching out at this time. That's important to do. So either way, we are remembering that we're in the new normal, or like I said, we might just want to call it normal. But let's remember we're continuing to move through this pandemic together. And as restrictions are lifted, we start to readjust, maybe start socializing in some way. Again, we'll also do that together. So I think at this point, I do want to say that we appreciate the opportunity to connect with you. Once more, I'd like to remind you that we are recording the session, so everyone will receive a copy of the presentation as well as the slides, which includes the links to resources that we have available, which will be here. And then I want to thank Jeannie and Mike for being my partners in this effort. I couldn't do it without you. Jeannie, Mike, anything to add or any additional questions that maybe we haven't answered?
No, I think we've gotten all the questions, so I think we're good there.
Great.
I'd like to finish up just by reiterating what I said about one and possibly two surveys that will come from Larimer County to everyone attending today and many others. One will be economic development related. It will be highly confidential, but we want to get a handle, especially given some of the things we discussed today, on where people are there struggles, or is everybody on top of things? What can we do as a government entity and our community partners like SBDCs to do better for you? So that'll be one type of survey. The other will relate to continued training programs that will feature professionals like Jeannie and Amanda and many others. So we'll be asking you about that. In fact, speaking of, there is a newly scheduled event coming up that has been popular and has been requested. People who couldn't make it to the previous crisis communications planning workshop, a highly interactive workshop that involves a little bit of homework in advance and group work. I'm about to hit the button. If you'll copy paste a link, if you want to consider. Okay, I'm trying to get into the chatting.
I don't know if it'll do that. Mike, we can send it out. Okay.
Oh, there it is. Yes, if you want to copy paste that. I'll be in touch with you though, because again, this amid crisis is probably a good time while it's on your brain radar to get a handle on either improving or creating a crisis communication plan.
That's wonderful, Mike. I know that we certainly want to say that would be a great a great planning session to be a part of. And I just recopied it just in case it wasn't available for all the attendees. So hopefully you'll be able to get that and copy it in now. I think that we're also always sending a link out to all of the Elevate content-based sessions when we provide the slides and the recording back to you. So be looking for that as well. Once again, our just disclaimer here, we are not attorneys or tax accountants, so nothing we're providing should be construed as legal or financial advice, but we do appreciate you taking some time to connect with us, and thank you again. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on Thursday.